recap a little bit, because we're kind of like, whatever. But it's we got to recap a little bit. So the main idea around this particular study, for us, right? Because it's one of those things. It's a refinement thing. You learn it once, but you got to learn it again, and you hear it more in depth. These types of things. But the key thing here is like what we're doing is we're building perspective, right? We're building hashkafa, right? Like an outlook, right? And this is important because, like, when you think about the idea of coming from like Christianity or coming from Islam or other faith systems, and then we come into the Torah, you know, this perspective building is like so incredibly important, right? And it's so incredibly important, right? Perspective building, because when we have students, we have to deal with the way that they understood life, God, and everything, because they're applying that to the Torah, right? They're applying that to Torah, and it's not. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing, right? But when we understand the system around us, right? Because at the end of the day, like what was my main buy-in, right? Because Rav Ashlag, like I said, was like this was like the first like teachings I was like taught. Like I just randomly stumbled upon some people, and it was pretty girl took me there, and now I'm here talking to you guys. You know what I mean? So the thing is just saying that it was extremely important, for me, because it allowed me to ask questions that were more so not saying this religion versus that religion, but rather what tools are provided for me to do this particular work, right? Like Rav Ashlag's position and the positions of the Kabbalist is that, hey, we're in this world to correct our soul, right? And so the Torah and the mitzvot, right, are the mechanism to correct our soul. Now the soul's going to get corrected anyways, right? Because of the cycle of life. However, pain and suffering, right? A life devoid of Torah mitzvah, the only way God can correct the soul if we don't do the Torah and mitzvahs is putting us through strenuous things and all this type of stuff, right? So we're in that space, right? So if I'm understanding the Torah and Judaism from that perspective, that my soul, right, what we talked about earlier, that our soul, the soul comes down into this world, right, and the soul comes down with this desire of sharing. The soul, once it enters the body, the goof, it develops this energy intelligence of the desire to receive, right? Because that's what this body is. This body is purely the desire to receive, and it always will be that, right? So the soul comes in and mixes with this body and develops this new kind of consciousness. So God, what does God do? God, so the question that he asked, well, if the soul now has a desire to receive and not the desire to share, what is the mechanism that gets the soul to want to be able to reconnect to the creator? And this is the darkness, right? The creator creates darkness in the world to compel the soul to reach outside of the limitations of the body consciousness that only has a desire to receive. Okay? And so this is the system that we're learning, right? And it goes even further and says that there's three different phases to understand this total picture, right? The first phase is this concept of understanding that there's the soul, and then there's the world to come, the future reality, right? But the soul has to go through a correction in order to access this future reality. That's level one. Level two of this understanding is understanding that the soul itself goes through a correction with using the Torah, and or not, right? But this correction that the soul goes through allows the soul to complete its mission in this lifetime, right? And once the soul completes its mission, when that soul goes into the ground, once that body decays, and then the soul goes up to the heavens, only to be reincarnated. This is the third phase, which is the reincarnation. That's what we're going to learn about today. Is reincarnated, comes back into this reality, and God creates the old body, And then this old body that this person has, whatever defects, blemishes, whatever, God heals all of those things in front of the person and then gives them a new body. This new body is only in the desire to share. The first body that we had was temporary. This body we have now is temporary. It's like clothes, right? You could argue that God made clothes to remind us of this concept, right? Because we got to start looking at life and why God created things the way that they are. Why do we put on clothes and take off clothes every day? What's going on, right? These are all Torah. Everything we see around us is Torah. It's teaching us Torah. Like, well, you ask a kid, you put on clothes every day. What's the Torah of these clothes? What is the Shem trying to teach us by making us have to put on clothes, right? And we could say, because one day, the body that we have is going to be temporary, right? And we're not going to need this body, and we're going to be reincarnated and given an entirely new body. So taking off the clothes and putting on the new clothes is a reminder of the process in the world to come, in the process of the future reality. But we're reminding of ourselves every day. So we should think that every day. We should think about the resurrection of the dead in the reincarnation process of receiving the new body. I even wrote a whole thing yesterday, on cosmetic surgery, right? We talked about it. It's just like all these people going crazy for cosmetic surgery, the Kardashians, all these types of people, right? But the closer we get to the final redemption, it could be that these people are going crazy because they're craving the new body from the reincarnation process. They in their soul, they want that new body. They want that perfected body now. But because they don't have the technology or the way or the system, right? The desire of a new body gets filled with cosmetic surgery. And some of these people become addicted to it. They start doing the whole body. I met girls like this. And I'm not saying it's just girls, but I'm saying they just start with the nose, next thing the cheek, the Botox, then the arm. They did something to the arm and the neck and the whole thing. So the thing is just saying they're trying to get that perfect body. And it looks weird. It looks like cosmetic surgery. And they keep getting more. And I'm like, you look like a bird. You know what I mean? Like it's the face is just like, so it's like a whole thing, right? Thank God we're as Black people, we don't have to worry about that. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. So the thing is, the thing is saying that that perfected body, right? And so why are these things important? These things are important because if the darkness already exists and the desire to receive already exists, and the goal is to get to a place of correction through the transformation through sharing, what are the tools that I have to do that? Because I need tools for that, right? So I wake up in the morning, hey, I'm washing my hands a certain way. That's I'm already boom, the soul already took a jab at the soul off the top right in the morning. Correction instantly. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to the bathroom. I come out of the bathroom. I'm doing blessings. Hiya. One more time. You know what I'm saying? 18 blessings. Hiya. Right? Then I put on my talit. Hiya. I'm just going at just bored all day. I'm learning. I'm teaching. I'm doing kindness to my wife. All these different things. Kids, the whole dynamic, right? So anyway, so the point is just saying, so we're doing this work all day. So the question is, other faith systems, I'm not mad at you. I love you. We're all brothers. But show me the tools to transform me to the desire to share. And that's why it's important for us to have these studies, because we have to remove ourselves completely from these other thoughts of there's any other reason. We're here to create. This is a tool. This is technology. Right? This is a gift, right? And we want to honor that gift, right? And that gift is our lives, and it's the wisdom, is all of it's connected, right? So that I just want to have that conversation going into it, because the concepts are so great, right? But the point is to be so clear that we can have a healthy relationship with the Torah, right? Because now that it's a tool and now it's connected to my inheritance and all these different things, then it's like, oh, okay, we're cool. I gotta change today. I'm gonna experience challenges. I'm gonna go through difficulties. I'm gonna have heartbreaks. I'm gonna have great successes of joy and great feel. But all that's there to correct the soul. The sadness is there to correct the soul. It's okay to feel sadness. Okay. So in joy, you know, I think we said that last time. Joy. I don't know why that song's in my head. Until I hear that. I don't know. Anyways, all right. So let's go into this. Okay, yeah, I talked about okay, so I remember this. Okay, so let's go. It says umi kayana yatsal anu hapitu rima halala shell. So it says like this. Okay, so the fifth inquiry, if you guys remember, we don't need to go back to it because they're going to say it. But the fifth inquiry is like this. So we're going to get into the resurrection of the dead, right? That's how they be saying it, right? Like they got to put that guttural voice into it when they said the dead. Okay, so he says this always. He said this always answers. Okay, this he said this also answers the fifth inquiry, right? As we explain, the body is defective to the point that the soul cannot reach its complete purity until the body is completely decomposed, right, in the grave. So, if so, why does the body resurrect? So he's asking a question, right? So we're scholars in this now, right? He's asking a question. He's saying, hey, if the body limits the soul's ability to achieve its perfection because the body is rooted in the desire to receive, and the soul's potential is to be in a place of complete desire to share. And so when the person is buried, like we just talked about, their body has to decompose into the ground, right? So like in Israel, when someone gets buried, they usually just wrap them in cloth, right? And they put them in the ground, right? Or if they do it in Hutzla Aretz, right? Meaning if they do it outside of Israel, they have a custom. Some people do it the way I just said in outside of Israel, but other people they get what they call a wooden coffin, like a pine coffin, right? Like a pine wood, right? And what they do is they drill holes in the bottom of it, right? So when they put the body into the ground, that the soil will be around it, right? Because it's part of the puzzle. All right. So he's asking the question: if the soul can't even go up to the high levels of the heavens, if the body is the body until the body decomposes, right? The body decomposes. You know, it's an interesting thing about that too. Like sometimes you see people like, older people. I remember my grandmother in blessed memory. She should be blessed. From the Torah, her grandson is sharing Marie Reinhardt. Hashem should know she's a part of it. So I remember when she passed away. She had she had cancer. She went through leukemia, but at the end she was like all like shriveled up and like tiny and this and the body. It was just like whoa, it was like a crazy thing. But now I see that was very holy, because that was a body already in a process of decomposing. You know what I mean? And ridding itself. So that's a very holy thing, right? When we see people go to at the end of their life because the body's getting ready to transition and the body has to decompose in order for that soul to go up to the heavens, right? Okay, so it says, okay, so he's asking the question. So if that's the case, why is it when we're reincarnated, does God have to create this body again? Right? Beautiful question, right? Why do we need it again? And he says, moreover, the sage says that the dead body will be resurrected with their blemishes, so that there will be that there will be. And he said, and he makes another point. He said they'll be resurrected with their blemishes, so that others will not say that they are different people. Vehayayin tevin hitava memi chashat habaria. So he's saying like this. Okay, so he says the plan of creation. So that I mean he didn't ask the question, but the thing is, what does this mean when we're resurrected? So when God resurrects us in that body, right, and that body is created again, and so he says that. So he says so other people would not say that they're different people. So what is there like some committee? Like people are looking at each other, they're pointing each other out. What's going on? Like that people even have an opinion during the time of resurrection on what another person looks like or not, right? That's a crazy thought, right? So let's see if we get some clarity here. The plan of creation itself provides the answer based on an understanding of the first stage, right? The first stage being the soul that needs to be corrected in the future reality, right? he says, we had said that the plan of creation is to bring pleasure to the creatures, right? We learned a long time ago. The reason why God created this world was to bring pleasure to his creatures, right? And he says, and it follows, therefore, God certainly created a great and extreme desire to receive all of the positive influences that are present in God's plan. So, in order for God to give to his creation has to have a desire to receive God, right? So, this is the concept of the desire to receive. This is how the world was created with the desire to receive, because God's goal and plan was to bestow his benevolence, right, upon us. He says, and we have said that the plan of creation is to bring pleasure to creatures. It's follows. Therefore, God certainly created a great and extreme desire to receive all of the positive influences that is present in the plan of creation. The great pleasure and the desire to receive are linked. So this pleasure that we desire and this desire to receive are together, right? So that's why it's easy. You can see how the media can trick us to think that pleasure is happiness, right? Because that incentric aspect of us that has this desire to receive is directly connected to pleasure. But really, what we want is the light force of the creator, right? We want to get back to the creator. So, this concept of pleasure, you can see how it could be a deterrent in our psychology, right? So men will go out and pursue pleasure versus holiness, right? Because every commercial says that. The great pleasure and the desire to receive are linked into one. See chapter 6 and 7. He says, we explain there that the great desire to receive is in fact all God needed to create, nothing else, right? We explain here that the great desire to receive is in fact all that God needed to create. Nothing else was necessary to accomplish the goal of creation, given that it is in the nature of the perfect actor, right? So let's understand this. So we explain that the desire to receive is in fact all that God needed to create. Nothing else was necessary to accomplish the goal of creation, given that the nature of the perfect actor to act efficiently and to do no unnecessary action. So he's saying like this. So in essence, what he's saying is like the basis of all creation is the desire to receive. So when we understand what did God create first, he created the desire to receive. Before anything else was created, it was a desire to receive. And from that desire to receive, all of these different components of the desire to receive come out. All the planets, all the stars, all the blades of grass, the sand, the people, the ocean, the ripples, the flowers, the everything is an expression of this desire to receive Hashem's light in a unique way. That's what the whole thing is. Everything you're looking at, the desire to receive, the kids, this, the physical creation, everything has a spark of God. What does that mean? Everything has this desire to receive or would not manifest, right? It would not manifest. So we're looking at, she says, nothing else was necessary. He says, nothing else was necessary to accomplish the goal of creation, given that it is in the nature of the perfect actor to affect efficiently and to do unnecessary actions. He says, as we say in Shir HaYichud for Friday, all he's quoting the Sefer, and he says in all your labor you forget nothing, and nothing and let nothing out and add nothing extra. Sham. So he says it's also stated above in chapter 10 and 11 that I don't know, I can't say this word. The expansion, right? The expansion of the desire to receive was removed entirely from the system, right, of sanctity. Okay, so he's saying that there was a system of so you have the system of the desire to receive, and then there was a system of sanctity that was created, right? And so the desire to receive is that, and I think we can understand that when it says in the beginning of creation, God separated the light and the darkness, right? So the light is this idea of the desire to share, but the darkness is the desire to receive, obviously, right? So in the beginning, when we hear about the creation of the world, the first pasuk talks about the darkness. And then later it says Ve'ahi or, right? The next verse, the second verse says Ve'choshech, and then the third verse says Ve'ahi or, right? So one says darkness and one says light. So he's saying here that there's a pure and impure system that exists, right? And he says, in place the system of the world of impurities from the emerged seven things. Okay, so let's try to understand. I just want to be clear what's being said. Okay, so I think we're on the same page so far, right? Because you gotta just be clear and aware of what's happening. Okay, so creation needed to have the desire to receive, and that's the basis of it, right? Okay, so he said. So we also stated above that the removal of the desire to receive was, I mean, so the desire to receive was removed entirely from the system of sanctity and placed in the system of the world of impurity. Okay, which emerges from several things: the body, what those bodies need to live, and everything that they acquire in the world. Right after a man reaches the age of 13, involvement in Torah and mitzvot help him acquire a sanctified soul, right? Which is nourished from the system of the holy words in proportion to the sanctified soul that the person has achieved. Okay, so let's try to understand what's going on. It's getting a little hazy. Okay, so he's talking about the body and the body's connection to the desire to receive. And everything that the body desires is in a desire to receive, right? We want to sleep, we want, affection, we want to stretch, we want to work out, we want to eat, we want all these different things. This is all about receiving, right? And so he's saying when the kid turns 13, this is the process of him expanding himself past just that level of existence, right? Because like a human being is not created just to just receive, right? It's here to receive for the sake of sharing. So up until that time, kids are in that place of receiving from the moment they're born, they're nursing from their mother, and all the way to this age of 13, they're pretty much there. Now the Torah comes and says at 13, this is where it shifts. This is when you start to become a man, as they say, but it's not really man. This is when you now become responsible to correct your soul, right? Okay. And so okay, so it says Gam Amrunun okay. So it says like this. So he says in chapter 14. So he says, as we said above, that he said that no repair acquires. Okay, so he says above that no repair occurs to the body. That is to the aspect of the desire to receive during the 6,000 years of the world's existence, right? We're meant to the service of Torah and mitzvot. Whatever repairs the person achieves through that service only affects the soul, which rises along the upward path to the sanctity and purity. That expands the desire to give and appears with the soul. For this reason, the body will eventually be buried and decomposed, since it is not repaired at all. But if the body will not remain in that state of decomposition, for for if the separation of the desire to receive would be inhaled from the world, the plan of creation would be fulfilled. That is because the plan of creation involves the creatures receiving all of the great pleasures God has planned to give to them. After all, the great desire to receive and the great pleasure received are proportional one to the other. And any diminishment of desire to receive will diminish the pleasure of receiving. So he's saying that this idea of the receiving part, right? Why is the body so important? The body's important because of the body's desire to receive. The pleasure that we connect to through the Creator is so great. right? So it's as if the body is that mechanism, right? So I'm thinking we're going to do a halakha. So we're going to stop here at chapter 26. But we're gonna learn some halakha so we could come down because we're going to very high levels. So we want to bring it down to practical things too. So we're going to learn some halakha, but I want to just get some thoughts on this.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. So the way I'm understanding what we just covered is when I think about creation, it's that when Hashem created everything out of the idea, He created everything to receive, and so that's how everything is created. Um, what I gather from that is that if I, in considering that it starts in darkness, that everything is in darkness, everything is basically in darkness, and so I look at that as in everything is in His mind, everything is in His thoughts, and everything is concealed. Okay,
Yeah.
and so therefore everything in His mind and in His thoughts, um, they're they have a desire to be manifested, that desire to be expressed, that desire for that light to be shined upon me for this moment, so I can be revealed and be present in the fullness uh, of my maturity. Okay, so in other words, if we just take a like our own thoughts, let's just use ourselves to understand what I believe is the way I'm kind of framing this.
Yeah.
So in our thoughts, we have thoughts that are dark, that are selfish, that are from the ego, but then we also have thoughts that come from sanctity. And so what we have to do is we have to separate those thoughts that are sanctified, are holy, from those that are not. Now, those thoughts and those ideas, that both ideas, the dark ideas, are and the I want to say the lit up or the on fire thoughts, basically. Both are screaming to be manifested. Both desires to be manifested. But what we have to do is we have to repress or push down those thoughts that are dark, and we have to begin to work to manifest or shine light on or bring into light those holy ideas, thoughts. And so, like, if there may be a book that you desire to write, because that book is you sharing information. You see, just as an example. But that book will only stay in your mind, in your thoughts, if you don't work to push them into the natural light where everybody else can see it, where it becomes tangible, right? So from our desire, it's as if those thoughts, those ideas, that they have a desire to receive, and that receiving is literally acknowledgement, and the ability to be manifested. And so once it is manifested, now it converts itself into the sharing stage, to where it's saying, okay, now I'm in the light is shining on me, and now I can express my purpose. I can express and share with everyone else. But as long as I'm stuck in darkness, I'm steady being concealed, and I'm always struggling to have that desire. And so with the body, if we at stage 2, where the soul is trying to manifest the full radiance or the purpose of the body in correcting it. But when we die, the body has to decompose, basically going back into darkness, to be finally resurrected and brought to that place of complete correction, so that the light of creation, the light of Hashem, will shine upon it, and now it can share fully. It can fully share, and that's the body that we're created in, of total body of complete sharing that you were speaking about. I know it's kind of lengthy.
No. I'm taking it. That was very clear. That was very clear explanation, and that's what this whole thing's about. We're learning, right? We're all students right now, Rav Ashlag, and we're going through this transformational process because these are huge ideas, and I'm at a different stage now than I was the first time I heard the idea. You know what I mean? So we're all growing together. So yeah, you're right. And on that point, I would just say that desire to receive for oneself, right, versus the desire to receive for the sake of sharing, right? So that desire to receive for oneself, that is the consciousness we have to get out of, right? And whether it's in our thinking, our actions, everything, and we have to convert that desire to receive for oneself into the desire to receive for the sake of sharing, just like you're saying. And that propelling for the sharing is what the expression of the uniqueness, the true self, right? The true self can only manifest through the sharing, not through the receiving for oneself, but through the sharing. You get to say, you were going to say something there?
But that is revolutionary what you just said, because that identifies the whole concept of the desired self, that we can determine and say, okay, hey, before I do anything, before I try to, what is my motive behind doing this? What is this desire about? Like for example, it okay. So if we decide to go and do chesed, if we give tzedakah, or we want to go and show kindness, right? We even have to identify, why am I doing this? Because I'm gonna tell you something. I've worked with ministers long ago, and I've actually seen, whereas ministries they will develop a plan, okay? Let's say to feed the homeless, right? But the real motive behind feeding the homeless is to get publicity. Is to get publicity. So it looks like you're doing goodness and kindness, but it's not from the right place. It's with the motive to get the news to show up and to show that you're doing good. Rather, it would be better for you to do that with the motive saying, you know what? I see people are hungry. Man, let's get up. Let's go feed the homeless. Hey, I'm not worrying about the news. I'm not worrying about any of that. I want to see them fed. And that is the whole motive. Now, if the light gets shined on it, so be it. But guess what? Even in humility, you will push away and regress back and say, I don't want the news here. I don't want that's not why I'm doing this. I don't want that. And you'll push back from that, because your ultimate desire is holy. It's holy. It's not to be seen.
Yeah. I was gonna say, on when you were speaking about the body going through the transformation and beginning to transition to the point of death, even in our society, we see that death, it almost needs to be like glamorized, like, oh, they died this way and this and that and so forth. But when you brought up the point about, your grandmother becoming frail and so forth, and what that her body was going through the transition for death. And I think we were reading about, when when we all will bow before Hashem, every knee will bow, that it's like at a point of contact where everybody has to go this direction, everybody has to die. And so oftentimes we try to categorize things off of what we see, whereas we don't understand that everything has a process. And so through that process of the body becoming frail, or through the process of not being able to do the things that you were able to do before, as the body begins to transition, that's all a part of going back to that decay, so that we can eventually receive the new body.
And it's holiness.
And
holiness.
so
Wow.
So we kind of put our mindset on the wrong things, like, oh, how did they die? Or this and that, or, whatever. And it's a lot. We got to correct so much.
Yeah, no, that was very deep, and I want to make one point to what your husband was saying in the regard. So there's two scenarios, right? One scenario is the guy who wants to go and give charity, but he's completely in the place of the desire to receive, right? He's doing it. He wants to. He's doing it for vanity. He's doing. It has nothing to do with the people. He's doing it to receive. So now that's an important frame to think about, right? It's an important frame because the issue is, right, and when the Torah speak, now that we have this language, when the Torah is speaking about idol worship, right, they're not talking about the idea of having a stone or a guy on the cross. They're not talking about that. What they're saying is that your desire to receive is from a source, from an impure source. You want to receive from a different energy, not from the creator. So the person, go ahead.
I was this week. I was actually just kind of looking and just still again reading over Telehim chapter, I believe it was 115, and I remember being in the Christian church, well, first the Catholic church, okay, and the imagery was so vivid, where you could see the cross, but you could also see the image on the cross, and thinking like, oh wow, got to pull away from this, right? So then you move to more of a Protestant belief system, and you no longer see the imagery on the cross, but you just have the cross, right? And then from that, you move to, okay, no, we're not right. And it's almost like you get to a place Hashem is saying all you did was, just like switch from one level to the next, but it's still etched in your brain, in your mind, and it's that mindset is still there. So now you have to dig deeper into correcting and to, getting back in connection with the true and living God. And so that was just something, that a process kind of that I, for myself, that I've kind of gone through over the last, few weeks of just kind of thinking through that process of idolatry. That idolatry is, yes, of course, wood and stone and all of those things, but idolatry also can be putting things, people, and circumstances, above the creator.
Amen. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So exactly as we're building on that, it's saying like, so you have a guy who's doing it for these purposes, right? So what he's saying in that moment is that I do not want to receive the light force of the creator. I want to receive the energy from people, right? I want to receive from people, because when the person is bragging or a person is that, it's an energy that comes with it, whether it's attention, whether it's conversation, whether it's admiration, whatever it is, they're receiving energy. Someone comes up to me and gives me a hug, it's an energy, right? So the same thing when people honor you, right? So some people get addicted to that energy, right? And so we, like what you're saying, it's like we are always making two decisions all the time. Am I going to get the light from the creator, or am I going to get the light or the energy from the physical world? That's it. That is the playing ground every second, every day, every situation. That is the playing ground. Am I connected to the light force of the creator, or am I connected to the light force of my ego, right? Which I can also get pleasure from, right? But it's not going to allow me to correct my soul, which is going to bring me more suffering, right? So this is a problem the drug addict has, right? It's all pleasure, right? But they just destroy right in front of us, right? So it's just saying. So we got so many examples around us of the desire to receive and how it just takes people over, right? Most addictions are people who had other issues that were all connected to the desire to receive, and then the drugs and the alcohol or the intimacy, whatever, is just something that comes on top of it, right? But the root is that that person is not doing the dynamic. But I don't think medicine would tell us that. So that's the point. Now, the other example that you gave was the guy who says, "Hey, you know what? They're sharing. I mean, there's people that are there, and let's go and do it." Right now, the problem in that area too is that there could be the ego is tricky, right? So it could take that self-righteousness, and a person can get energy from that. They could get energy from that. They'd be like, "Oh, man, this guy is righteous." You know, he could look in the mirror and say this, right? And not really say it, but he feels it about something. You know how many people I fed this week? You know, this type of thing. Now, how does the guy or both guys protect themselves, right? How do both guys protect themselves? And the way that they protect themselves are by saying, "I'm doing it because the halakha tells me to do it. That's why I'm doing it. I'm only doing it because God has commanded me. That's it. There's no other reason. God commanded me to do it. I'm doing it in that pleasure that we want, that pleasure that we would get from the attention. It's okay. You want it. I know you want it. The pleasure that you would get from yourself and your self-righteousness, that same pleasure is manifest by knowing you just did a precept of the Torah. So that same energy, go ahead.
Okay, so just to put this in the right framework that I'm thinking in. So if a man says, you know, the halakha teaches me to set aside provisions for the poor. Okay, just give an example. Then I may not see any poor around. I may not come into contact with the poor on that day or next week, or you know. But what I do is I set aside provisions. I set aside resources or foods or whatever it may be, with the mindset that, hey, I'm fulfilling a mitzvah here by simply putting this aside for the poor, so that, guess what? I come across the poor, I got something for them, you know. And they have that's like the whole idea behind the Tzedekah box, right?
Yeah.
Because the Tzedekah box is that, hey, just in case. So would that be the framework that we should be in, even when it deals with, you know, where it's not necessarily I'm having to be observant about my surroundings, which is good. But the fact is that if I just do the commands and follow when I show up, I'm already have what is needed. Is that where we're going?
Yeah. So on that point, it's a similar dynamic by Abraham, right? That works. If a person says, "Hey, I'm going to put aside provisions for the poor," right? And so say the poor doesn't come, he has those provisions, right? Does he still get the mitzvah of tzedakah? And I would say that he would be able to achieve the mitzvah of tzedakah. Number one, if he knew that he may not see poor, he has to pray and beg Hashem for someone to give to. Number one, right? Just like Abraham did. And the second part is he has to go out and pursue, look for people to help. Like Abraham standing in front of his tent. He's like, "Where are you guys at? I need to share. I need the connection to God. Come over and eat." Right? So he just wants to do the mitzvah. He wants to be closer to Hashem. Right? So that's the idea on that point. Yeah, you can do that, but you have to beg Hashem, please bring people in my life I can share. It's a lot of them. You know what I mean? So that's one of those things it's never enough of. Okay, so let's go back into just some halacha. We're going to do Shabbos. We'll see how it may be very long, so we may stop in the middle, but we'll see. I don't know how long each of these sections are. So anyways, okay, so it's like this. Shabbat Kodesh Hu Ha'ot Hagadol Habarit. So he says the holy Shabbat is the great sign and covenant which the Holy One, blessed be He, gave to us, to know that in 6 days the Almighty made the heavens and the earth and all that is in them, and abstained from work on the seventh day. This is the foundation of our faith. Our sages of blessed memory said Shabbat is equivalent to all the mitzvahs. Whomever keeps the Shabbat in accordance to the law is regarded as he fulfilled the entire Torah. And whoever desecrates Shabbat is like one who's completely denied the Torah. And so it is said in Ezra, you came down on Mount Sinai, and you gave your people righteous judgments and true laws, and your holy Shabbat, and you made known to them. They call Machalela Ed HaShabbat Hare. So he says, anyone who desecrates Shabbat publicly is regarded as a non-Jew in every respect. If he touches wine, you are forbidden to drink it. The bread that he bakes is the bread of a non-Jew. This is big stuff, right? And he says this is Shulchan Aruch, bro. So you got these people say, I'm Jewish and I don't keep anything. All right, so the Shulchan Aruch says clearly, if you don't keep Shabbat, you're treated as a non-Jew. So whatever that means to you. And so he says, in the food he cooks is like the food cooked by a non-Jew. Publicly means that in the presence of 10 Jews. And it is not necessary that he actually desecrates the Shabbat in their presence, but even if they know of the desecration, it is considered public, right? So if someone comes out and just says, I don't care about Shabbat, or people, if more than 10 people know that this person's like this, they are considered not a Jew, right? I mean, they can always repent, but in that regard, you have to separate. So he says, okay. He says this law is derived from the Talmud and Poskim. The Talmud asks, was not the incident of Esther public knowledge? He says, Peri Magana ruled. Is a commentator ruled that publicly means in the presence of 10 Jewish men, or when the desecration is publicly known. Lifi Chag Shabbat Hanavia ve'omer. So it says Asher Enos Ye Ase Zot Uvel Adam. So he says, and before he says, therefore the prophet offers praises and says, fortunate is the man who does this, and the man in the son of the man who maintains this, he who preserves Shabbat from desecration. The prophet's decree, the reward of one who keeps Shabbat in accordance with the halakha, and honors it and delights it in the most utmost ability, he will be rewarded in this world besides the great reward reserved for him in the world to come. As it is said, if you restrain your feet from going out, he's saying a measure of distance, right? He said the absence of from your business on my holy day, and you proclaim Shabbat a delightful day and the sanctity of God, the honor it and honor it by not engaging in your weekly activities, and abstain from pursuing your business affairs and from speaking words pertaining to the weekly needs, and then you will delight yourself. So all these things are important, right? So the whole thing of this idea of rest, the idea of Kodesh, right? Kodesh means holy, but it also, could be understood as to be separate, right? So the separation between Shabbat and the week is not just, you know, as a time of rest, but it's everything about what we do during the week is to separate that mechanism and to come back in. Last Shabbos, I was thinking about, I was laying in bed and I was like, wow, it's it's a crazy it's a crazy thing, right? It's a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing to stop. Not waking up and looking at your cell phone and having conversations. It's like you stop and you relax and you reset and you think about, like, what a crazy life not to have that. even though I didn't. I grew up. I never did Shabbat, right? I mean, my parents are Muslim, you know. So it's just saying like it wasn't even a thing, right? But it's a very powerful thing, you know, when you think about it. So we want to separate ourselves from everything that we do during the week, and meaning in our thoughts, right? We want to have Shabbat thoughts. Keeping Shabbat is starts in the mind, right? And so the mind, keeping Shabbat in the mind is this separation from the week. Then when you delight yourself before Shem, I will cause you to ride over the heights of the earth, and I will nourish you with the inheritance of Jacob, your father. And the mouth for the mouth of God has spoken. Ooh. Kitiv Zakor Ed Yom HaShabbat Lekadsho. So he says, it is written, remember Shabbat and keep it holy. This is the Ten Commandments. This is the Ten Commandments. This is humongous, the Ten Commandments. When we're doing Shabbat and we're keeping Shabbat, we're literally bringing that light vibration that was revealed on Mount Sinai. There was 10 dimensions of light. And the dimension of light that talks about remembering Shabbat, remembering the Shabbos day and to keep it holy, right? Which means you must remember the Shabbat, right? Every day and keep it every day of the week to keep it holy, right? So the remembering of the Shabbat is not just saying, hey, remember it's Shabbat. Remembering Shabbat is thinking about Shabbat all the time, preparing for Shabbat, thinking about Shabbat. You know, what am I going to do differently this week? You know, the holiness of it, reading about it, like we're doing right now. We're creating so much, you know, like love and awe about the greatness of Shabbos, right? And we should always think this way, right? And he says, remember Shabbat every day of the week to keep it holy, and to keep it holy. Thus, if you happen to have a rare delicacy that is not able every day, and you find it not in which will not spoil, you should buy it in honor of Shabbat. So you always, you know, anything nice. You run somewhere, you see, wow, a nice cake. You know, okay, you know what? I learned this too here actually. Especially I don't live in the community now, but I used to live in a very, very religious community, and it was so important for me to be in this community coming from Los Angeles, right? Because it was a complete opposite, very like what would be considered poor community, Mer Sharim. But I learned to live for Shabbat, right? Like now, like I mean, like now it's very hard for me to have a full meal during the week. I'll do it sometimes, you know, but I don't have meals during the week. I mean, I snack. I mean, obviously, it's not so easy when you have kids, these types of things. But it's just saying that the whole dynamic is to say the only really full meal that I could justify, where there's like wines and meats and breads, I couldn't do that during the week. I'm sorry, I couldn't, unless it's a holiday or Rosh Chodesh or something like this. Like I can't think about that. Like it's an insane idea because that I won't even be able to appreciate it fully because it's not Shabbos. The food itself has a special light on Shabbat, right? And so that special light that's on Shabbat, that special light on Shabbat is um it's fully manifest, right? It's an interesting point. It's like the food is so different on Shabbat. It's like what's going on? So the creator is infusing the world with the desire to share. That's what Shabbos is. That's the light of Shabbos. The week is all about the desire to receive, right? So this desire to share, right? This desire to share is Hashem giving us this abundance light of rest, of peace, right? So when we eat and we celebrate and we're in that place of Shabbat and we're eating, whether it's the meats or whatever we're having, and we're eating in this way, it's knowing that we're connecting to Hashem from the frame of the Ten Commandments, right? Knowing that we're fulfilling the what was given to us on Mount Sinai, right? And that idea of connecting to Shabbos, right, is the idea. Okay, so it says, okay, so on the eve of Shabbat, the day Erev Shabbos, the day before Shabbat, it's a mitzvah to rise early in the morning and purchase your Shabbos food. So buying Shabbat food is a mitzvah, right? A lot of guys complain. I mean, I know the gentleman here doesn't, but a lot of guys complain about what their wife does and doesn't do for Shabbos, right? And in earlier in marriage, I fell into that trap, right? But um, I fell into that trap too, but then I learned more about the holiness of it, and I realized that my wife was actually giving me the opportunity to do more mitzvahs, right? So the shopping, and on top of it with the shopping, hey, if I'm going to do the shopping, more than likely a lot of things I'm going to pick are things I like. I'm not saying you don't like them too, but it's different. You know, you see a piece of meat, you pick a different piece of meat than maybe your wife would. You know what I mean? So it's a thing. So anyway, so yeah, so it's very holy. It's a big mitzvah to shop for Shabbos, okay? And to have a style about it and your own bag, and it's a thing, it's Shabbos shopping. It's not just shopping, right? Especially when we have a lot of kids. It's like, it's like you're always shopping, you know what I mean? And so it's like it's over here, it's a different shopping. It's a shopping to fulfill the mitzvah. So in itself, it's a mitzvah, right? The preparation for the mitzvah is a mitzvah. We learn that with Hanukkah, right? With the Hanukkah, right? The preparation and getting the candles and the lights and the oil and this, but that's a huge mitzvah, right? So over here it's the same thing, and so okay, so on Shabbos day it's a mitzvah to rise early, to rise in the morning, to purchase your Shabbos needs. You may shop for them even before saying the morning blessing, the morning prayers. That's crazy. They're like, it's such a mitzvah that the Shem said you can go and shop. It's if you're going shopping in the morning, Shabbos day, or even the day before, you 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 could do shopping before you even pray. That's how big of a mitzvah is. That's how much the mitzvah is. You could do it before you even pray, provided that doing so would not cause you to miss the praying with the congregation. It's preferable to make purchases on Friday in honor of Shabbat rather than on Thursday. That's what I do. I do on Friday. But sometimes it requires preparation should be purchased on Thursday. So if you're having a big meal and a lot of people are coming, and so you need time, right? With each purchase, you should say, this is in honor of Shabbat, right? So everything that you buy Shabbos day, say to yourself, say to the kids, say to your husband, I'm buying this in honor of Shabbat. And then he picks up something and says, I'm buying this because of the honor of Shabbat, right? And that's the whole basis. And the kids say it, and everyone says, and this is the mindset. So it says, in accordance with the ordinance of Ezra, clothes should be laundried on Thursday in honor of Shabbat, and not on Friday, because Friday you must engage in the preparations for Shabbat, right? Okay, so let's stop here. Let's stop here, right? Let's stop here, and we're going to continue on going through the laws of Shabbat, and it's about to get more detailed, right? So that's why I want to stop here, so we don't overload. You know what I mean? And just like have a good soft landing with Shabbat off of this very high Torah we're learning by Rav Ashlag, and we'll continue on tomorrow. Yeah, go ahead.
Baruch Hashem, once again, this is amazing, because basically these are things, what you just covered is what we've been implementing for a while now, and so we typically we go out to buy all of our foods and things like that specifically for Shabbat on Thursdays, because we have to drive about 2 hours to go get some of the things that we need.
Yeah.
And I found myself at times feeling like, oh man, just and just the bill is so high, it just it's so expensive, and and then we got to drive 2 hours, and this, and I Baruch Hashem, because this really helps to look at it and say, you know what, this drive that we're making, the resources that we're using, this is a mitzvah.
Yep.
This is holy. This is holy.
And even the gas money is holy. The gas money you spend is holy.
Yeah.
And it's correcting too. It's correcting. It's giving more, structure, because sometimes like we would be rushing and trying to do the laundry on early Friday morning preparations, and I always just kind of felt off doing it at that time. It's just like it felt like, okay, even though I got this done and that done at the house, I don't really want to be doing the laundry right now, you know? And so we kind of corrected, and not to say that we had read this, why can I, this halakha law that, but now we kind of see that, okay, the reason we felt off, or the reason why, is because this is what the sages say should be done.
And also just the food, when you said that there's a special light on the food on Shabbat. You know, last night we got home and I made a soup, right? I made a little potato soup, right? And it was good. It was okay. It was good. It was good. But my wife, for Shabbat, she makes these soups before the main entrees, right? And I'm gonna tell you something. It's like you're like, man, what did you do to this soup? And it's just like, but if you go back, it took me probably about maybe 30 minutes to make this soup, if that. But her, it takes almost about 2 hours, 3 hours to get that soup where she wants it, and it is different. That there's something totally different. The meats, the fish, the desserts, everything, and so that's a blessing.
Yes, and then just seeing the children and helping them to understand, to distinguish that this is Shabbat, this is for Sabbath versus during the week. Like sometimes they'll want their little lollipops and those little special treats and stuff that they get during Sabbath, and you're like, no, this is for Sabbath, and you, in a sense, you feel, kind of like, oh, but you have something else. Maybe go grab a fruit or this and that. But then when Sabbath comes and you see their faces, they're just lit up when they have their lollipops and different things like that. It makes it more special, and it helps to kind of train them to understand this is for Sabbath versus this is for just the other 6 days, of the week. And so we just are learning more and more how to elevate Sabbath. So we're so grateful for just the classes and the lessons, Rabbi. We're just really
Thank you.
grateful because it's
Thank
really
you.
helping a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, and in all the classes, I'm thinking about all the people you guys are going to affect, and because it's a lot of work we got to do, and there's not a lot of teachers, or potential teachers, from our background that have the right information, right? Because the biggest thing is unless if a person wants to be a code leader, they just give over information, right? But if you're trying to empower people, you have to give them a tradition, right? That they can pull from, that they can learn from, autonomous of you, right? And they could pass that on to their children and their students, right? And that's what this thing is about. That's why I have such an emphasis on text, right? And text is important, and how to learn the text and how to see the text and build a relationship with these authors, and see where they're trying to get us to and compel us to, and to think in this way, right? Because this is their sharing, right? And so connecting on that level is important, because we've always seen, we just have Martin Luther King. He was such a great leader, and did so many great things. But the perpetuation of his success wasn't necessarily imbued, right? And so we need traditions of wisdom, so we could pass on to our youth, so they could pick up some of these books, some of these ancient books, and say, okay, boom, character this, bam. Oh, that's why my dad did this. Oh, this is why my grandmother did like this. Okay, wow, wow, wow. You know what I mean? So that's the culture. In terms of the teaching I'm doing is to inspire a culture of learning, like learning culture, right? Where learning is at the forefront. Learning is at the forefront of the spiritual experience, and learning as couples, learning as families, all these other things. All right, but learning culture is important. Okay, I think it froze on me. I don't think the screen froze. All right. So we're in the class. Tomorrow, God willing, same time. Baruch atah Adonai leolam.